While 100 nations debate Israel's future at the UN, Israel just made a move that changes the conversation entirely. They've opened a 2,000-year-old road that proves something powerful. And the timing? It's no accident. This isn't just archaeology. This is a statement. On September 15, 2025, something unprecedented happened in Jerusalem. Israeli officials inaugurated the pilgrimage road in a ceremony that brought together major political figures from two countries. And as of January 2026, it's fully open to public access through the City of David. For the first time in 2,000 years, you can now walk the entire route from the Pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount. The same stones, the same path, the same 2,000-foot journey that ancient pilgrims took. But here's what makes this different from every other archaeological site you've heard about. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was there. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was there. U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee, an ordained Baptist pastor, was there. This wasn't a quiet museum opening. This was a ceremony with major political figures making bold statements. And the timing is crucial. Right now at the United Nations, over 100 countries are pushing resolutions about land and sovereignty in this exact region. European nations are calling for recognition of a Palestinian state. There are intense negotiations happening. Then Israel opens this road, a road that's been buried under 2,000 years of rubble, conquest, and destruction. A road that archaeologists say was built around 30 AD, during the time of Pontius Pilate. A road that connects directly to what's arguably the most contested piece of land on Earth. The Israeli government says this road proves an unbroken historical connection to Jerusalem. Critics say it's a political move disguised as archaeology. But here's what nobody disputes. The road is real. The stones are ancient. And what they found underneath tells a story that archaeology textbooks will need to rewrite. But before we get to what they found, you need to understand how they even discovered this road in the first place, because it wasn't planned. The inauguration ceremony in Jerusalem was unlike any typical archaeological unveiling. This was a high-profile diplomatic event. Marco Rubio, U.S. Secretary of State, walks the ancient stones. Benjamin Netanyahu stands beside him. Mike Huckabee, the U.S. Ambassador to Israel and an ordained Baptist pastor, is there too. Foreign Minister Gideon Saar, Strategic Affairs, Minister Ron Dermer, the Mayor of Jerusalem, the Director of the Israel Antiquities Authority. This isn't just a ribbon-cutting ceremony, this is theater. Political theater with 2,000-year-old props. Ambassador Huckabee makes a statement that gets quoted everywhere. He says they're the first people in 2,000 years to make this complete pilgrimage from the City of David to the Temple Mount. The first in 2 millennia. The ceremony isn't held in some conference room. It's held right there, on the ancient stones, at the site where they're planning something massive. They announce major infrastructure plans, a new gateway to the old city. They're planning for millions of visitors annually. They're building a cable car system that will transport 3,000 people per hour to the site. The Israeli officials present don't just talk about the past, they talk about the future. One speaker mentions plans for when the third temple is built. Not if, when. They say people from all nations will come by plane, by train, by cable car to worship on this mountain. The atmosphere is charged. You can feel it in the speeches. This isn't just about tourism or archaeology. Netanyahu makes his position crystal clear. He looks directly at the cameras and says Jerusalem will never be divided again. He says there will be no Palestinian state. He calls out Turkish President Erdogan by name, telling him this is not his city. Rubio talks about civilizations that conquered Jerusalem, the Romans, the Byzantines, the Ottomans, all gone. But one people returned. And then he says something that becomes the soundbite everyone remembers. Marco Rubio stands on those ancient stones and delivers a line that sends shockwaves through the media. As you go through the layers of history, you realize that all the civilizations that conquered this city, all the ones who tore it down and built on top, are all gone. The Roman Empire is no more. nor any of the others that sought to conquer and rule this land. But one people remain. They have returned. For God's promise is eternal, and it is perfect, and His word is always true. The U.S. Secretary of State just made a theological statement at an archaeological site. He's not speaking as a diplomat reading talking points. He's speaking with conviction. He talks about standing on the very road where 2,000 years ago, here, people from everywhere ventured to get closer to their Creator. He calls it a humbling experience. He connects it directly to America's founding, saying the United States was built on the principle that human rights come from a creator, not from government. Ambassador Huckabee goes even further. As a Baptist pastor, he's not holding back. He quotes Psalm 137, "If I forget you, O Jerusalem, may my right hand forget its skill." Then he adds that the Jewish people never forgot this was their land, their home, their capital, from eternity. He looks at the stones around him and says they validate that the Jewish people have belonged here for 4,000 years, since God told Abraham, "This is yours." His closing line becomes another viral moment. Tonight, the rest of the world comes to say, "Welcome home, and may no one ever attempt to take your home from you." Netanyahu doesn't soften the message. He says Jerusalem and Washington will continue to protect their common civilization because they're engaged in a battle between civilization and barbarism. These aren't academic speeches. These are declarations. But here's what most news coverage missed. While everyone focused on the political statements, there's a deeper question nobody's asking. Why now? Why open this road at this exact moment in history? 2004. A sewage pipe bursts in the City of David area, just south of Jerusalem's Old City. Workers show up to fix it. They start digging, and they hit stone. Massive stone. Not modern stone, ancient stone. The Israel Antiquities Authority gets called in. What they find stops them cold. It's not just one stone, it's a paved road, 8 meters wide, made of massive Herodian-style blocks, each weighing hundreds of pounds. And it's been sitting there, completely intact, buried under 20 feet of debris for nearly 2 millennia. But here's the problem. This isn't some remote desert location. This is the middle of a densely populated area. There are buildings above it, there are modern streets, there are property disputes, and political sensitivities everywhere you turn. So they make a decision, they're going to excavate it anyway. 13 years. That's how long it took. Some sources say up to 20 years of work. The Israel Antiquities Authority and the City of David Foundation worked together on what became one of the most expensive archaeological digs in Israeli history. They couldn't just dig from the top down, they had to tunnel. They had to work underground. Be carefully removing centuries of debris while making sure the buildings above didn't collapse. Every stone had to be documented, every artifact cataloged, and they did it quietly. For years, they ran private tours for small groups while the excavation continued. Most of the world had no idea this was even happening until September 2025, when they opened the entire route to the public. But what did they actually find down there? That's where this gets interesting. The first thing archaeologists noticed was the sheer scale. This wasn't a side street. This was Jerusalem's main thoroughfare during the Second Temple period, 8 meters wide, paved with stone so massive it would take a team of workers to move just one. But the road itself was just the beginning. Along the route, they found stone weights, a special measuring table, likely used for commerce, remnants of ancient shops where merchants sold goods to pilgrims heading to the temple. There was even a small mikveh, a ritual bath where people could purify themselves before ascending. They found a podium. Archaeologists believe it might have been used for public announcements or Torah readings. Imagine standing there 2,000 years ago, listening to someone read scripture while thousands of pilgrims walked past. The coins tell their own story. Countless ancient coins scattered along the road, each one a small piece of evidence about who walked here and when. But here's where it gets darker. Beneath the road, there's a drainage channel, a massive underground tunnel that ran parallel to the street. And during the Roman siege of 70 AD, when Jerusalem was being destroyed, people hid down there. Well, inside that drainage channel, archaeologists found cooking pots, oil lamps, hundreds of bronze coins from the Great Revolt against Rome, fish bones and grape seeds, evidence that people were living down there, hiding from Roman soldiers above. They found a Roman legionnaire's sword. Think about that. A weapon from the army that was systematically destroying the city above. They found perfume vials, jewelry, dishes, personal belongings from families who fled into the darkness hoping to survive. And they found something else, a small stone carving of a menorah. But who actually built this road? That's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The timing isn't random. Nothing in this region ever is. At the United Nations, there are active discussions about Israeli sovereignty, Palestinian statehood, and the future of Jerusalem. European nations are pushing for diplomatic recognition of Palestine. There are calls for dividing Jerusalem into multiple administrative zones. Then Israel unveils a 2,000-year-old road that physically connects the city of David to the Temple Mount, a road that proves continuous habitation and pilgrimage. A road that becomes physical evidence in a political argument. In January 2021, the United States designated the City of David as an American Heritage Site, the first such designation outside U.S. territory. Argentina followed in June 2025 under President Javier Milei, making the same designation just months before the pilgrimage road opened. These aren't symbolic gestures. These are diplomatic statements about historical legitimacy and cultural connection. For Jewish people worldwide, this road represents validation. It's archaeological proof of their origin story, their indigenous connection to this land. Every coin, every stone weight, every ritual bath reinforces a narrative that's been contested for generations. For Christians, particularly evangelical Christians in America, this road has different significance. They believe Jesus walked these exact stones. The Pool of Siloam, at the southern end, is where Jesus healed a blind man, according to the Gospel of John. The likelihood that Jesus used this road during pilgrimage festivals is, according to archaeologists, nearly certain. Some see this as prophecy unfolding. Others see it as political maneuvering with religious cover. But there's something else happening that's getting less attention. Something about what comes next. The pilgrimage road is just the beginning. The plans they announced at the opening ceremony are massive. Infrastructure is being built for scale. A cable car system is in development that will transport 3,000 people per hour to the site. That's not a small tourist operation. That's infrastructure designed for mass movement of people. They're projecting millions of visitors annually. Not thousands. Millions. Think about what that means logistically. The roads, the security, the facilities, the coordination required to move that many people through an archaeological site in one of the most politically sensitive areas on Earth. And then there's the statement that raises eyebrows. Multiple speakers at the ceremony talked about the Third Temple. Not as a hypothetical, not as a distant dream. They spoke about it as something that will happen. They described a future where people from all nations come to Jerusalem by plane, train, and cable car to worship together on the Temple Mount. Right now, the Temple Mount is one of the most restricted religious sites on earth. Jews can visit but cannot pray there. It's administered by the Jordanian Islamic Waqf. Any change to that status quo would trigger international crisis. Yet here are Israeli officials, standing on a newly opened ancient road, talking openly about a future temple. So what does this actually mean? That's the question everyone's trying to answer. Here's what we know for certain. A 2,000-year-old road is now open. The archaeological evidence is undeniable. The political implications are massive. And the timing, during intense international negotiations about this exact territory, cannot be ignored. Here's what we don't know. Whether this is purely about heritage preservation or something much larger. Whether the talk of a third temple is religious aspiration or actual planning. Whether opening this road changes the diplomatic calculus at the UN or hardens existing positions. What we do know is this: millions of people will now walk where ancient pilgrims walked. They'll see the stones. They'll walk the path. They'll draw their own conclusions about what it means. And in Jerusalem, conclusions about the past have a way of shaping decisions about the future. The road is open. Where it leads depends on who you ask and what happens next. That's the part nobody can predict.